All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us tonight for the second round of JTA's U2C TOD pilot public meetings. Tonight's meetings will focus on conceptual development of TOD frameworks, previously determined planning level proposed station areas within the U2C program corridors. My name is Alexander Traversa, and I'm the project manager in JTA's Planning and System Development Department, where I focus on long-range transportation planning, various scales of transportation projects, as well as trans-oriented development. And with me today from our project team, I have Josh Turner with WSP. I'll turn over to Josh for a brief intro.
Hi, thanks, Ann. Yes, I'm Josh Turner. I'm an urban designer with WSP, based out of New York, but before COVID, had many visits to Jacksonville to prepare for this year's work. So happy to be here tonight.
We're getting a bit of an echo, so I'm gonna try to close some stuff up here. All right, so tonight's public meeting is going to be sort of a virtual charrette, if you will, kind of our first attempt at this. So similar to previous meetings, if you attended, you'll be able to comment in the comment section to the right or below your video browser or video screen in the browser, depending on the device you're on. You also can submit email comments to the link on the public input page. So throughout this presentation, we're just going to give you a brief background about where we are with the project, and then we'll dive into some of our proposed frameworks, and then we'll open it up for kind of a live sketch presentation. And so during that time is when we really are looking to get your feedback. What we're really looking for is what type of development would you like to see in your neighborhood. And so as comments come in, Josh is going to be live sketching tonight for us on a map. So we'll be able to kind of incorporate all of the community's ideas as we build this framework. So you have the opportunity to either comment in the comment box, or below the video, there's a map-based questions where you'll be able to use a scrollable drop-down menu where it says add a point. And this will let you select a type of land use that you could then drop onto the map and leave a comment as well. We'll do our best to juggle kind of both the comment section and the map-based questions as Josh is sketching to make sure we get everything incorporated. And then finally, after the meeting, you can visit u2ctod.jtafla.com and participate in the survey, or also submit questions, comments on the study website or webpage. And then additionally, as our time is pretty limited tonight, and we're going to be sketching 2 of our proposed station areas, any questions related to kind of the U2C program and things like that, you can either follow up with me separately or visit our resources page on the website, which has a frequently asked questions sheet that provides a lot of that information. So tonight, we're just going to share a brief status update on the project, give a brief project overview for those that are just now joining us for the first time, and again, dive into those frameworks. But before we get started, we just wanted to share a brief video showcasing some of the corridors that we're analyzing as part of the project. So just a brief status update on where we are with the project. The project kicked off back in January of this year. Again, we did an existing conditions analysis that lasted a few months with various on-site surveys, data collection, and data processing. This is used to develop our first task, which was our TOD readiness assessment. This is what we brought to the public back in July with our first round of public engagement. We took that, synthesized that information, and kind of advanced 6 stations that were selected as priority stations to move into this more refined framework development. So that is what we're kind of doing in this next round of public engagement. Following up with that, we'll be doing our TOD implementation task, which will be kind of developing the frameworks for how do we get these implemented. Again, these are high-level planning analysis of proposed stations that were identified in previous analysis as part of the U2C program. So that'll take us into a completion of the project in early 2021, with probably likely another round of public engagement towards the end of the year. So again, the project focuses on the Ultimate Urban Circulator Program, or U2C. This takes the existing Skyway system, which is shown on the map in the solid dots. Those are the existing Skyway stations, and expands it into surrounding neighborhoods, making the system, bringing it up to a 10-mile system. Utilizing autonomous vehicle transportation as the alternative to the existing Skyway, as well as connecting neighborhoods and redevelopment areas and leveraging multiple public investments for TOD. So again, the goal is focused around transit-oriented development around this autonomous vehicle network. Next slide, please. So as we go through these frameworks, we really want to focus on TOD. And so the goal here is to create a development that includes this mixture of housing, office, retail, so really creating a live, work, and play environment that will help support transit and support users within the community that might not want to rely on a personal automobile. So with that, utilizing infrastructure such as bike lanes, sidewalks, things that will support kind of this multimodal hub within the network that will then provide a more sustainable type of development. So as we move into the framework development, I just want everyone to keep that in mind as we start offering suggestions for some of these land uses. Next slide, please. And then, so, the TOD, again, fits right along with JTA's mission. As we, again, continue to develop these frameworks, we really want to focus on improving mobility within those corridors, really making those connections between key neighborhoods surrounding the downtown, as well as creating economic opportunity. Any ways we can revitalize or reuse some underutilized development area, infill development, which is far more sustainable than a lot of the greenfield development we're seeing here in Jacksonville, and further expanding through urban sprawl. This will help enhance our community surrounding our downtown, as well as provide a more sustainable form of development overall, kind of creating a more sustainable Jacksonville. And then also supporting transit infrastructure improvements, as well as the city's improvements through financial sustainability. And so now I'll turn it over to Josh to kind of go through some of the project's team's TOD frameworks that have been developed.
Thanks a lot, Zan. Yeah, so just to kind of reiterate the structure for this second part of the presentation, we're going to try to make it as interactive as possible. In a normal circumstance, we would all be sitting around a table with maps down on the table with markers, and we would be drawing for this type of meeting. But we are going to adapt to the times. So we'll see how it goes. But again, really excited to be here tonight and to focus on Springfield, and specifically looking at the second and main, the 2 proposed stations for Springfield among the 3. So we have Second and Main and 8th and Main. And one of the things that we took away from our last round of engagement with folks in Jacksonville was that during the meeting, one of our meetings for Springfield, it was suggested through the comments box that, instead of maybe focusing on one station for further development like we're doing tonight, what if we understood Main Street as the corridor it is, and it has the potential to be anchored by the two stations, 2nd and Main and 8th and Main, and that's just what we've done. So we'll be moving forward with thinking about Main Street holistically, and understanding kind of anchoring the corridor with a southern anchor at 2nd and Main, and a northern anchor at 8th and Main. Our previous work identified topologies throughout the system, so we won't get into detail about that, but 8th and Main and 2nd and Main do fall into the broader core neighborhood topology. And as we discussed with you all during the last round of engagement, core neighborhood can mean different things. For Springfield, it's certainly it's a historic place. It has an urban character. It's a draw for people looking for an urban neighborhood that has that commercial core to it, like that we see between 7th and 8th, especially on Main Street. And it's a little different from a place like, let's say, Jefferson next to the JRTC, or even in Brooklyn, where it's a core neighborhood, but you're seeing newer multifamily development that's really prevalent. So we really get the what makes Springfield unique as a core neighborhood. So to set the stage to talk about our frameworks for 2nd and Main and 8th and Main, and really the corridor, we just wanted to go over some of the highlights that emerged from our existing conditions analysis, really everything that we were looking at to get us to today. So for 2nd and Main, this is a real transitional area between downtown and Springfield, and that will be an important point to come back to in a second. But as you can see here, the map on the right, it shows the proposed station here at 2nd and Main. Those yellow boxes, those are vacant and underutilized land. So that's something that definitely sticks out to us as really an opportunity for what could be. Is there a higher and better use for those parcels, especially when a new premium transit service like U2C would be operating on the corridor. So we think there's an opportunity here to cluster new context appropriate, also, and that means also the scale, so appropriate kind of lower density development here around the station, and really with the idea of creating a gateway, really an informal or unofficial entrance to Springfield, and also kind of the gateway into downtown. So we think it has a lot of potential to be a unique place in of itself. Moving north to 8th and Main, this is a different, different character, has different characteristics as down at 2nd and Main. For sure, the commercial corridor along Main Street is certainly robust. It's exciting, it's interesting, and it's a real amenity for the neighborhood. Also, this is within really within the Springfield Historic District. And so we want to build upon the momentum that we see here. And whereas at 2nd and Main, the opportunities for new development were right along Main Street, here, because Main Street's already built up and I would say thriving, where are there opportunities within the station area that are still station adjacent? And we certainly see large parcels, and some of you have made some comments already about some of these parcels. What would be, what would you like to see? And we certainly see an opportunity for, appropriately scaled and contextual mixed-use development. We think a grocery store, a market is a great idea. So those are some of the things that we'll be talking about when we go through the framework. So this kind of sets the stage. And what we'll do now is we'll actually go through the framework, and we'll go through some of the design principles that we find really important. We do this in 3 layers. So we first talk about circulation. And so this map, this diagram on the left, you'll see this build and change as we add on the layers. So this one, it's really talking about the street grid. What are we connecting to? What are some important points? The next one that we're going to layer on is open space. And so, you know, what are our ideas about the public realm? You know, where are we connecting to? What important open space network features are we connecting to? And finally, the third layer that we'll be talking about tonight brings it all together and adds in those additional pieces that actually point to, you know, potential new development, what areas, what parcels are seem to be prime for that. So to talk about circulation, we see A here, kind of mapped on the diagram, and we think Main Street as a corridor should be active, absolutely optimized for the pedestrian and the bicyclist. So we want to make this a connected corridor, not just for vehicles, not just for the ultimate urban circulator, but also, and maybe most importantly, for residents, for people circulating. And it's all about expanding the options of how to get around. And you want to make sure that if you know, if you want to, instead of maybe using a car, circulate, you know, up and down Main Street, we want to make sure that the public realm supports that. It's safe, it feels nice. Another key piece of this is connecting Springfield and kind of this Main Street corridor to UF Health. And we think that, you know, an important piece of that is along 8th Street and really throughout the neighborhood. You know, where do we need to connect and complete the sidewalks to help support that pedestrian kind of optimized public realm? And again, you know, it's linking to what we're calling a regional center over at UF Health. It's which is also a stop for the U2C. It's how that is connected in with this corridor. So adding on the next layer, so it's the open space network. And this is where we start talking about what we call complete streets. And so this is really a menu of amenities to support you know, the pedestrian and the public realm experience. And it can range from bicycle lanes, benches, enhanced lighting, street trees. All of these ingredients really come together to make it a very pleasant, a wonderful urban experience to be a pedestrian within. And that's very important when we talk about wanting to make Main Street a central spine for Springfield between 8th and Main and 2nd and Main. You know, there's a lot of, I guess we can say there's a lot of teeth missing, both, you know, in terms of a continuous kind of public realm that's pleasant, but then also vacant lots. We'll talk about that in a second. But again, just, you know, where you see the A here, you know, so along Main Street, along A Street, along 4th Street, you know, this is where we would put forward our priority corridors for those complete streets. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't want all streets to have, you know, some sort of improvement or enhanced public realm experience, but we want to create a hierarchy or a priority, so we know, you know, to strengthen the kind of the main anchors or the main corridors first, and then move on from there. Something else we see, and really it's a story that we see for the 2nd and Main station, but it's really these east-west or lateral connections along 2nd, 3rd, and 4th over to Koothlow Park and the Emerald Trail, the larger Emerald Trail network. And so we think that's a huge amenity to have within the neighborhood, and to reinforce those connections is really important. And so that's something that is a priority when we think about, you know, TOD and in the Springfield neighborhood. I'm going to just get a quick drink of water. So now we kind of bring those elements of circulation and open space, we bring them together with an actual framework for transit-oriented development. And I'll just go through kind of what we're seeing, and then what I'll do is we'll kind of break from this, and I'll do some sketching. and we'll be sketching some of these elements that we're seeing, and then also incorporating suggestions or comments of what you want to see in that sketch as well. So this is a lot of information, and so the goal with sketching over the sketching session is to really kind of break it down, slow it down, and really draw out the elements. But just going, down the line here, where we see A, so this is up at 8th and Main, we want to create a neighborhood node. And we think that there's an opportunity to use contextual infill development with activated ground floors on those large parcels that we were pointing out before. And those will play a role in the sketching that we do next. There's already a strong kind of frontage or urban form at this intersection of 8th and Main, especially south of 8th on both sides of Main Street between 7th and 8th. So as far as the idea of reinforcing the intersection, you're already there up at 8th and Main, but down at 2nd and Main, that's where the actual vacant parcels are right there along Main Street, and you see that along the corridor. So one of the principles that we have for an approach to TOD is to, in order to strengthen the corridor, are there opportunities for strategic infill development along the corridor, and especially at 2nd and Main, can you create contextual infill development at those four corners? Maybe there's a pocket park, and we'll talk about that when we zoom in and sketch out some ideas. But then of course D, there are, when you look at, a map of parcels, there are certainly an abundance of vacant and underutilized parcels along Main Street. So there's just a really large opportunity here to create an active and interesting corridor that really will serve as the spine for Springfield. So to talk about what some of this stuff may look like, we've collected some precedent imagery. Whenever possible, we look at, we look at examples throughout Florida, but there have been some times that we go out, to places that are quite a far away. So, Los Angeles or Denver, so examples of where we think new development, what this could look like, or, what are the key components for possible new development in Springfield. So the image on the left, it's a modern building. It's a residential building. And so I instead of maybe focusing on the aesthetic, this is one way to do it, but it could be something, the style could be something that's, very appropriate and suitable for being within the Springfield Historic District. But what I do want to focus on is, are the components of this. So at the ground floor, you're seeing an activated use. And so this is, in this instance, it looks like a coffee shop, but it could be a dry cleaners. It could be an essential neighborhood service. And the idea here is, with any new development, try to add in those missing amenities from a commercial and kind of retail and service perspective, so that you're creating a complete neighborhood. And that also promotes being able to stay within your neighborhood to meet all your daily needs. The development on top of here, again, this is a small intimate building. This is just 2 floors of residential. This probably has maybe 6 to 10 units total as a part of it. And we do see, we really are responding to the scale and how the ground floor is being activated. On the image on the right, this is in Wynwood in Miami. And what we like about it is really how the corridor is being activated. So you can think of this as Main Street. And are there different strategies you can use to activate the corridor? So it doesn't necessarily always have to be new development. It could be on one of those vacant parcels creating a pocket park. And already in Springfield, there's fantastic precedents, and they're actually part of the character of Springfield is using murals and artwork. So we see that idea being able to translate to Main Street quite easily. street trees, putting in lighting, that can be a unique characteristic. So it could be a mix of enhanced lighting for the corridor, but then also you can look at, what you could do with trees, something creative. And we like this image also because it's still a transit way. So we see a bus here, we see a guy on his bike, and in the situation, or on Main Street's case, we want to see those same elements. We want to see the U2C, the vehicles, we want to see the existing buses. We want to see bikers. We want to see pedestrians. That is a way that you create a complete street and really a complete corridor. These next set of images, this speaks to adjacent infill on adjacent blocks. So maybe not right along Main Street, although that could happen. But these are examples of townhomes or very small apartment buildings. And again, similar to that example that I showed earlier, where it was a modern building, again, kind of take away the design of it and really look to what you can do with different materials. We like the mixture of brick and wood siding, and you can think of there being something very appropriate for the Springfield neighborhood that would comprise of infill townhome development. The image on the right is something, again, that we could see that I could very easily see this in Springfield. So I want to decode this image a little bit. So this building right here, this is in Chicago, by the way. So this is an existing small apartment building. These are 2 units. And what they've done is that these were 2 vacant parcels on either side. And this is providing affordable infill housing that is among existing buildings. So I think this is a great example of how infill can be strategic, and you can also be meeting different needs. So in this case, it's affordable housing, and we've seen workforce housing being built throughout downtown Jacksonville. I'm thinking of La Villa right now. And so, are there opportunities to provide housing for disabled vets, workforce housing, affordable housing? But as you can see here, I think this image does a good job at showing how existing and new can come together and start filling in some of those missing teeth throughout the neighborhood. Talking about the public realm, and this expands a bit on what I was talking about with that Wynwood corridor in that image earlier. So on the left, we're back in Wynwood, but this is an idea of what a pocket park could look like. It doesn't have to be a square green space. It can be using what you have and the resources that you have. So here, 2 interesting murals. A gathering space for people. You see some, very limited but effective amenities for the public. So again, this is just the idea of what elements can come together. This is a great example of a pocket park that has a pretty limited design palette, but it's being smart and strategic. And finally, the image on the right, this is talking about again, you can think of this as the Main Street corridor. And this is just a different look at maybe what the corridor could look like when it mixes in a couple of those complete street strategies. So here we actually have a very simple BRT shelter. For U2C, it's going to have similar, maybe not that, but it's going to have a similar touch as far as the infrastructure of the system. There could be, a blade sign that shows when the next vehicle is coming. But, it's important to understand how those elements mix in with the corridor. We like this image because this is certainly an urban corridor that's low density, and it has amenities that are improving the overall realm, the public realm, really optimizing the experience for the pedestrian, be it with crosswalks, with street trees. Those look like they've been there for a while. But you can imagine some of these elements playing out on Main Street. So I want to take a pause here, and maybe before we start sketching on this aerial. So this is a zoom in on 8th and Main. I wanted to ask Zan if anything, before we get going here, any critical feedback or any questions we have.
Yeah, so one of the ones that did pop up is kind of the complete streets features, their connection to the park space that's existing already, and then what are some of the kind of environmental benefits of some of these features that we're suggesting, right? So, and I can address a lot of that myself, but
hey, Zan.
what Josh brought up with a lot of pedestrian features such as street trees, pocket parks, softening a lot of this hardscape that we see currently with roadway and things like that. And what we're seeing in a lot of these complete streets now, and there's actually a example that's used kind of nationally right here in San Marco, which is called a green street, which is really a complete street feature, but it also incorporates some environmental benefits, including bioswales, kind of greenscape that will help absorb a lot of that stormwater, a lot of the flooding issues that we're seeing in the Springfield neighborhood already. And again, these street trees and pocket parks will help absorb some of that water that's causing a lot of this flooding, and also slow the rate at which that stormwater, reaches the public works systems. And then coordinating along with the Emerald Trail, a lot of their features, which will, kind of reinvent the creek system as more of a natural shoreline, will help kind of alleviate a lot of that flooding as well. So there's a number of features that we can do to help address these things that are inherently tied to transportation improvements, most of those being tied to the Complete Streets program. So those will be kind of additional benefits that will, be built out as part of the U2C corridor.
Yeah, and what I've started dropping in, and what I want to do here is just drop in, layer by layer, some of the major elements that will go into our planning when we zoom in and actually create a plan for the 8th and Main, for the Main Street corridor. So what I'm doing here, this is just dropping in kind of the idea of, well, first, the black line you see in that asterisk, that's the proposed location for a U2C station. It could be elsewhere, but that's generally the thinking now. It's somewhere along 8th Street, just west of Main, and showing its route going west to the UF Health. And actually, it might be helpful if I give you a little bit more of a lay of the land here. So that's 8th. This is 7th. Whoops. This is Main Street up along here, of course. And then you got Hubbard here on the right, and then Laura to the west of Main Street. And so just going back to, the complete streets, really, we would, we want every store or every corridor and every street to, have, provide a safe and comfortable experience for the pedestrian, but we do need to create a hierarchy and kind of priority corridors. And that's what I'm dropping in here. And what's interesting then is then you can start to see, how these key streets are, feeding in, and it creates really just the idea of the street network really being kind of the optimal mode of circulation for the pedestrian. So, just the idea of you being able within the neighborhood to really feed into to the primary corridor and either do shopping, go for entertainment, or catch the urban circulator. So one thing now that I'm going to drop in is I'm going to outline really that really robust commercial corridor, really that's quite active between 8th and 7th. And as I was saying earlier, the idea is that we want to build upon this momentum. People, it's a place that we came to a couple of times, a couple of evenings while we visited. So it's a place like this, it tends to be a draw, and also, but we also want to make sure that it continues to be to serve the neighborhood as well. So there's, as you move further south to 7th, the frontage starts to break up again a little bit, and so the idea here is that we kind of point that out, and we see what what we can do about it. The intersection here at 8th and Main is intact between the West Side Church, the apartment building at the southwest east corner, but then just north along Main, as you go to 9th, it starts to break up a little bit. So that's kind of the lay of the land, but then there's these parcels that are kind of within just the station area, and I'm going to point out really an obvious one here. This is the site of that vacant building. It also has some parking, but when we see a site like this, we immediately ask, what could this be? What's appropriate for this neighborhood? And most importantly, what do people want to see? And there's a couple of these, and they're variously scaled. So, and I'm not necessarily playing by the exact parcel rules, but just just sketching out where we're seeing vacant and underutilized land, and that helps to really lay the groundwork of where the opportunity exists. So we have several large parcels here to the east. To the west, they're a little bit more smaller. So we have a vacant and underutilized parcel here just south of 8th. There's the church parking. We'll leave that alone. Parking is, very important. So we know that on some of these parcels, parking is being provided. And we always want to put forward that with TOD development, parking can still be provided and should be, but you can be very strategic about it. It should be something that's not lining a major frontage like on Main or 8th. It should be tucked away behind the building. You can do a lot of clever things with surface lots and landscape. Or if there's an opportunity for a larger mixed-use building, you might have a 2 or 3 story garage that's integrated within the development block, and you see that a lot everywhere. It's a very typical TOD practice, but you certainly see it in a place like Brooklyn. So I outlined some of the parcels that are really kind of a low-hanging fruit, if you will, for where to look for new opportunities for development. And I think I know I saw some of the comments about, a grocery store, and we think that a grocery store would be a fantastic add to the neighborhood and really go a long ways to creating a complete neighborhood node. So on this larger parcel, that's what I'm going to sketch in here. So just bear with me. So the idea here is that maybe there's a, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's see. Oops. Okay. All right. So, you see it often, there could be an opportunity for a small apartment building that actually sits on top of a new, and in this case, maybe a grocery store. And so it would be an urban example of what you see in the suburbs. So something that really tries to take advantage of being in an urban location. So that's maybe a 3-story apartment building there that you see. And this would be over a single-story grocery store. So we'll just kind of drop that in there. We would also, in a more detailed station area planning, we would definitely be clever with our parking. So we won't totally solve that tonight. But we would try to think about how parking would be accommodated here, but then also try to understand if this is a neighborhood market, maybe can there be, the parking requirement not as great. So now I'm just quickly tracing over this so that it can be a little bit more legible. And I would say this grocery store is probably about 30,000 square feet. So, it's maybe not a huge store, but maybe appropriate for this location. So then if we just continue looking around, what else could go on this block? Oh, I'll add in here, on top of the roof of the grocery store, you could have an amenity deck for these residents. So just a green space there. That also helps with heat island effect and also water runoff issues. But turning our attention to the rest of the block, I'm just going to sketch in some lower density townhomes right along 7th. There's a little bit of delay with my sketch, so it's not a work of art.
Yeah, that looks like it's pretty consistent with some of the pins that were dropped in our map question,
Oh,
Josh. So it looks like we have a couple of residential on
oh, great.
7 Main. So
Yeah, so I'm just quickly sketching in, infill townhome development, and it could be a part of this really large parcel that can be thought of as a new mixed use block that really complements what we're seeing here along Main Street. So you still have this very urban, very unique kind of condition here along Main Street, but then you have a complementary development that adds amenities to the neighborhood and also provides a place for new residences. I think, looking at some of these adjacent parcels, I think there's just more opportunity for the smaller scale, maybe townhome development. So we'll add some townhomes over here. Maybe along Main Street, just north of 8th, maybe we add a 2-story live work commercial building. So the idea that there could be a small retail frontage and someone who lives upstairs, it could be their studio, and they could both live and then they could sell their wares, or they could have a small office space on the ground floor. So there's a lot of different forms development can take, and it doesn't have to be all mixed use apartment buildings, but it can be a combination of things. So I'll just add some quick outlines here just to clarify what we're doing.
Josh, as you run up those, one of the questions that came up, or one of the ideas shared was, the park along Main Street currently is leased. Where do you see kind of a park space fitting into this realm? I believe it's currently at right around 6.
Well, I think so I'm actually over here just west of Hubbard, and I added in some more townhomes to kind of fill in those gaps along 8th. But I think it could be a combination. Maybe behind these townhomes, there could be a parcel that's just left, and so becomes a kind of a small neighborhood park, and this really is about maybe a park for these residents, for this area. I also think that, as you move down the corridor, there could be some vacant parcels that are quite intimate, and you could maybe have a collection of pocket parks, which help form the story of how we activate Main Street. And so, maybe it doesn't have to be that classic park that we're thinking of, but yeah, maybe it's a system of parks that are smaller, maybe each has its own unique characteristic. And I think it could even add to this, it could make Main Street in of itself unique. It would promote exploration and certainly circulation.
Great. Another comment is flexible or on-demand office or conference spaces that would, be useful when working from home isn't ideal, or for meeting customers or having team meetings. So kind of a flex office space. I know it'll probably be, right along the lines of as we, determine how post-COVID recovery is going to look, and what that means for office demand and things of that nature. But any ways of incorporating that kind of, working in the corridor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of echoes, the idea of this small live work building here. You can think of these small commercial buildings as being, having multiple approaches to programming. So, having a place for a flex office is certainly something that would be, I think, a value add, and it's so as we do our detailed station area planning, it's these type of questions that we'll be assigning a program for this type of development. So much like, pointing out the townhomes and maybe there's a grocery store with a small apartment building on top, there could be a mix of live work or shared office space. As we kind of finalize, this sketch, again, I want to come back to reinforcing that this intersection, really the heart of the node. You can see that, by providing the grocery store and the apartment building, you're continuing that activation of frontage with the activated ground floor use along 8th. Over here, the parcels on the left, I'm not really going to draw them out, but it could be, very much the same strategies we used over here to the east of Main Street. Just drop these in. So before we move on to 2nd and Main, Zan, was there any other additions or comments for 8th and Main?
So just some more ideas related to parks and kind of activated park space, playgrounds and splash pads, really activating the corridor, and especially making it friendly to children and maybe families in the neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
All great features.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looks like, pretty consistent with the density that we have around the 8th and Main corridor, but just maybe expanding a little bit on kind of retail and shops and restaurants or entertainment, kind of following along that existing corridor, or if any of it kind of wraps into the 8th Street area.
Yeah, I think, as you move down, is there a way to, push the energy that you have between 7th and 8th and continue it, both north and especially south. And so when we think about that infill development, that could be, it can be a multitude of things. And we think that there could be definitely opportunity for, small scale restaurants and bars, really just adding to how to activate the corridor. But we would want to see that focused along Main Street, and then the residential uses kind of occupying the adjacent blocks, as it is primarily a residential neighborhood. So we'd want to focus those energies along the primary intersections and definitely along Main Street.
Great, and just one other one that I saw come in. So Main Street is, very popular for kind of block parties, street closure events, things like that. Responding to those is definitely we're capable of doing that with the system or the mode that we're choosing, the AVs. Similar to how we would detour the normal bus routes, we would be able to designate a route and program the vehicles to do so. So that's definitely a possibility, and I think it supports kind of the vision of a very pedestrian and walkable friendly Main Street. All of these features will help support or even just strengthen the area for those events.
Yep. Yeah, and I just just within this view, we can see the abundance of vacant and underutilized parcels, and so even given that, we want to, I think, for our station area planning, we want to focus the attention on this intersection so that the node then can, over time, start helping throughout the neighborhood fill in these other gaps that we're seeing. So we always have an eye towards, kind of the timeline, and if there was to be a plan for priority projects, where would it go? And we definitely think that this larger parcel, these larger parcels right in the immediate station area, we would want to see in an early phase something like that happening. So Zan, before, should we move on to Second and Main?
Sure, let's continue developing this corridor.
Okay, so I'm going to clear this. All right. Okay, great. All right, so we're here on Second and Main, and let me give some help here of landing us where we are. So this is First Street. This is Second. Whoops. Over here, this is really important. This is Kuflo Park and Hogan Creek. I'll just color that in. And then we'll just drop in real quick here, kind of an asterisk for U2C station with its northern trajectory towards 8th. And right now we have it making a little turn along First as it heads to Rosa Parks. But of course, it's just in the planning process. So, so different from 8th and Main, there's a lot of teeth missing here at Second and Main along the frontage. So it's something that we definitely want to prioritize. And just to highlight here, we have a large vacant parcel right at Second and Main. We have another vacant parcel here. You have a beautiful home that's located right there. We want to leave that just the way it is. So this is a mix of actual literally vacant parcels, but then also maybe some existing businesses that over time there might be a higher and better use. So, maybe at this intersection where you're going to have a station stop for a premium transit service, not to mention state of the art, do you really want to have surface parking lots that are right there at the intersection? So we're always, trying to be mindful and sensitive to, the businesses that are there now, but then really what is the highest and best use, especially considering the investment that's being made in the corridor. And then also just really what is the best for the residents in the community. So kind of outlined those parcels here. Actually, we have more, so there's quite a bit. And similar to what I was saying with 8th and Main, we really want to focus our attention right here at the intersection of 2nd and Main. But before I do that, I'm going to drop in, the important connections to the park. So I'm going to just use a single arrow here that really represents Second being a priority corridor for kind of the complete package of complete streets. And again, that's to really reinforce connections to the west, to Kuflo Park and the Hogan Creek and Emerald Trail.
Josh, just to expand on that real quick, we had a comment about benches throughout the corridor, along the corridor.
And
I think those amenities or assets are greatly beneficial to the community, and I think as we work through kind of complete street strategies, those features along the corridor are very helpful. And again, beyond that of a JTA stop or station, but street trees, shading, benches, are all complete streets features that would likely be featured in this corridor.
Yep, absolutely. It's part of the menu of amenities that we can that we have with complete streets. So it's things like benches and trash cans and enhanced lighting and different ways you can do lighting, but it's all in support of creating an improved experience for the pedestrian, and really kind of expanding it, not just a great street for a car, but really bringing back the person into the mix. So with this, and so I dropped in really kind of Second and Main being priority for complete streets, but again, you know, it's really all about how the streets are connecting in with the network. So you're creating a complete network of a public realm that feels connected and that feels complete. So I think what I'll do, so with this, we want to really just kind of focus on, you know, what could happen right here at the intersection, and you know, if we bring back kind of shared office space, maybe there's a small, you know, well, that's actually not so small, but maybe there's a 2-story commercial building that provides, you know, shared office. So maybe that's what this is that I just drew here. And it has also an activated ground floor. So while office might be upstairs or a different part of the ground floor, it can have a coffee shop, have maybe a small restaurant or bar. There's a lot of different interesting things that you can do with these smaller developments. Maybe on this larger parcel here, this is an opportunity for a new residential building that is pretty typical. Maybe it's an L shape. Maybe it's 3 stories, so maybe a little on the larger side. And then fill it in a little bit. So with this, maybe there's not a garage, but there's parking in back, and that parking can be integrated with trees and landscape, and really an amenity space for the residents. So we'll add there. But as you can see already, that intersection at 2nd and Main that had really no form to it, we can begin creating kind of the frame or the container for the public realm. So it is about buildings, but it's about containing and creating that space for people. All right, I'm gonna just drop in a little green space back here. And this, most likely this is parking tucked away. As you can see, it's not part of the frontage on 2nd or Main, and it's something that's landscaped and dealt with in a sensitive way. So already I'm going to add in, you know, what we've created here. We have a frontage here. The apartment building is going to have some stuff happening, and you know, you can do a lot with very strategic development. So I'll add in a couple more of these just to complete the story here. So, you know, maybe this is a restaurant with a rooftop bar. So it looks a little taller than 2 stories, but we're saying it's 2 stories. So as you can see here, a little deck that I drew. Whoops. Fill this in. And what's cool about this little idea is that you can have then, you know, people kind of overlooking onto Main Street, and you can have not only the street activated, but then you can have the kind of a terrace above that's activated as well. And so now we have 3 parts of our corner, and I think, you know, going back to where are there opportunities for open space along the corridor, you don't want it to be all, you know, all development. I think that right next to this historic home, this could be a pocket park, and it fits in right there. And so the existing home helps provide that container for the public realm, but it also gives some breathing room at this intersection. So we've created, you know, 3 parts of the corner, and then this can open up a little bit. And I'll just give a little bit of an outline to that house. Oops. So there's a question also, you know, is this the best use of this building? Maybe it's an adaptive reuse for that structure. So, you know, you don't have to, if there's an existing structure, You can create creative studios, just literally adaptive reuse. But that can also help. What's the container for this place? So yeah, so I think this is this feels appropriate, and I think sensitive to the neighborhood, but then also quite vibrant and exciting. When you think about this as a gateway between downtown, think if you're coming from downtown, and this is really kind of the initial kind of place in the south part of Springfield, a real kind of gateway, and then you make your way to that node at 8th and Main.
Great. Josh, real quick, I just want to cut in. So we had some questions regarding, supporting the funding for these ideas and how we can leverage TOD for kind of doing that. So first, I want to just add that, JTA, with transportation projects like this, JTA has access to different, pots of funding, federal and local, in which we can use for these kind of transportation improvement projects. So that'll definitely help alleviate or contribute to the projects in this corridor. There's also a number of financial strategies related to TOD, which can help fund these infrastructure improvement projects. Utilizing public-private partnerships and some innovative financing strategies can help drive the development as well as build that infrastructure that'll support that development.
Yep. I see also a comment here about making sure that the new businesses coming in complement the existing and don't negatively impact the existing businesses, and we totally agree. So I think there's, when we think about taking away from existing businesses, I usually think about a big box store coming in, maybe not along the corridor, but fairly close. That would then dry up the need for some of these smaller businesses. So we want to put forward. That's why the programming of this development and our recommendations, we want to be sensitive to that, and that's why understanding what's there now is really important. And at a place like 2nd and Main, you have so many vacant parcels at the intersection, and you really don't have, excuse me, you really don't have any amenities for the residences, like essential everyday needs really can't be met at this location. So we would put forward, again, if there's going to be businesses and activity on those ground floors, let's first have them be essential to the neighborhood so that we can help create a complete place.
Great. It looks like we have a couple more coming in. Yeah. So I can address the remediation issues. There are grants. EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has grants that can help alleviate some of those concerns with remediating those contaminated sites, but they are a challenge. It really does just take an investment into those sites to remediate them. So I mean, there's opportunities to utilize grant funding, but really driving development is going to be one of our biggest benefits to addressing those. And then we have some for utilizing the gateway as sort of a community center, along these lines. So as the community continues to grow, where is a good site for a community center? Is there any kind of larger scale parcels that could be utilized for something, for that nature?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, and that's part of the programming, and really what it's a mix of, what isn't there now and what we're seeing, but then also what the community wants. And, so I've drawn some blue boxes, and they could be a multitude of things. So this shared workspace 2-story office building could expand a little further down along Main Street and become that very thing, that community center. So, and maybe, where's the best location for something like that? Is Second and Main central to the neighborhood? Who is the community center serving? So it's all these things that we take in consideration, but, certainly expanding kind of this footprint. This is quite a large building, actually, almost spanning a block. So certainly having opportunity for um, creating a cultural amenity for the neighborhood.
All right.
Whoops.
So we have a question related to shovels in the ground. So again, the Bay Street Innovation Corridor, the East Corridor, is in design phase right now. That project is expected to be operational by 2025. The remaining corridors are contingent on funding. Previous planning exercises have prepared us to pursue federal funding for these projects. So that date is not currently known. So the first iteration of this is the Bay Street Innovation Corridor, which we're expecting operational by 2025.
And I'm just kind of filling it out here, as we will be doing in our more detailed station area planning. As you can see, there's a pattern here. It's it's the actual land that's available for new development, and also the scale of it. So at 8th and Main, we had that large parcel, and we put forward the idea of a true mixed-use development with a grocery store and an apartment building above. But as you can see here, Second and Main, it's a lot more nuanced. It's a lot more finer grain, and we think that's a great thing, because our study, we're looking at 6 stations among the 20 for more detailed station area planning. And what we want this TOD pilot to do is to show a range of approaches to development, that it's not one size fits all, that, acknowledging that all of these places, these station areas throughout the corridor, they're all different and they're all unique. And so just, with this sketch here, we're just seeing that, the development that will most likely be put forward by our team will be something that's, smaller scale, and really complements or supports reinforcing Main Street as an important corridor for Springfield. So Zan, I'm not, if you'd like, we can capture this and clear it, and then move on to next steps if you'd like, or give it a couple more minutes for comments.
Sure. If anybody has any further comments on some of the land uses in the Second and Main station area, feel free to throw them into the comment area, and we'll make Josh draw a little bit more.
Which I have no issues with. Hopefully it's not too horrible. Y'all are enjoying it.
Josh, from the map, we do have kind of a number of points that look like, extending that entertainment and retail and dining from, further up the Main Street corridor down towards that Second and Main. So really activating this intersection as well, similar to trends, along the entire corridor.
Yep, totally agree. And that's why, and it's that infill, you establish your 2 nodes. So we have our gateway at Second and Main. You have already an established place at 8th and Main, but you're going to reinforce that. And then it's the space, it's Main Street in between. And so it's a story about the public realm and amenities for the pedestrians, so that people are encouraged to actually use the corridor to circulate as a pedestrian. Also, really promotes the use of the circulator. And then, where, what are the opportunities to infill and adaptively reuse older buildings to support maybe a corridor that is a restaurant, is a bar destination, but then also, again, going back to the community, that the corridor really provides amenities to create a complete community along this corridor. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, the adaptive reuse really helps maintain the character of Springfield, and it's a historic neighborhood that already has a ton of character. So reusing those, existing buildings, at least facades, can help kind of continue that character down into the corridor that may have lost some of it through,
Right.
underutilized parcels being demolished.
Yep. And actually, as you can see here, even, as we look a little further on the sketch, it's Second and Main is maybe our focus, or where we're focusing our kind of repair strategy. But you can already see these really cool buildings. This is in the conversation of adaptive reuse, or just, promoting existing buildings that are already a part of this urban fabric here. So these are really important part of the story that maintains the character, the uniqueness of Springfield and this corridor. So I'm just kind of quickly outlining those, but that when we see that, that's already that helps the story, and so then we can fill in along Main Street between Second and First. Continue kind of our march here along with this kind of infill development. This is a larger parcel. Maybe this is a smaller apartment building. So now we have not just the intersection at Second and Main, but then we also have it continuing down to First. So really, it's the opportunity for a southern anchor here for the neighborhood is quite large. Just kind of finish this up. Okay.
Great. Well, if there's no other feedback, we'll go ahead and move on, but you can still provide your comments via the email address on our webpage or the survey questions below. Will remain open. I'll give that a save and clear. So we appreciate everybody coming out and joining us for this framework development. It's been a really great progress or interaction with you guys. The goal now is we're going to continue to do these events tomorrow night at 5:30 for the Shipyards, JRTC, and Rosa Parks, and Thursday night at 5:30 for Kings Avenue, the District, and Brooklyn stations, proposed stations. And so the goal here is to collect as much feedback as we can from the community and really have these frameworks be kind of driven by the community and then backed by our existing conditions analysis and data. So we're going to take these comments and feedback as well as the survey responses and begin to build out a more refined framework. Similar to how Josh has done, do more in-depth kind of illustrations and renderings of what a community or what these changes to the community might look like. So again, this will continue through the remainder of August through October as we build out the 6 selected stations. That's Main Street with 2nd and 8th Street proposed stations, the JRTC, Rosa Parks, the Shipyards, Kings Avenue in the District, and Brooklyn. And then the goal is to have an open house, likely a virtual open house event in November of 2020, where we will showcase the refined frameworks for these station areas. And again, all of the project resources can be found at our project webpage at u2c.tod.jtafla.com, shown there on the screen. Here you can find about the project, what TOD is, and some educational videos about the benefits of TOD as they relate to the economy and sustainability and public health. and then information on the corridors. And as we continue to develop content as part of the project, we'll be loading it to the project page. You'll also be able to engage with the survey under the Engage tab, and resources where you'll be able to find some of the content from the presentations, as well as the recordings of the presentations and our frequently asked questions about the U2C program. And then if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out under the contact tab. And with that, I want to say thank you to all of our participants tonight. I think this is a really great first go at a virtual public charrette. I think we got some really great feedback, and we really appreciate your participation.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. This is fun, and please join for our other meetings this week.